Hello and welcome to another episode of Battle Ready. And today we thought we'd talk about painting.
Yes.
Painting.
Paint.
So specifically, after Christmas and the New Year, and Drake has a birthday coming up.
Woo!
There's a lot of models on the shelf, a lot more gray than we're used to. And so the question is, when you have a lot of projects, how do you get through them? Now, I'm a big proponent of not having a pile of opportunity, a pile of potential.
It's a pile of shame. You know it is.
I think that just don't get models until you're ready to
get them.
Start working on them. Leave that pile of potential at the store, right? You don't have to bring it home. But when you do have models, when you do have a lot of stuff sticking around, how do you go about painting them up? And what do you like to do? And what keeps you motivated? And all that sort of thing. So before we start, though, then I think the number one thing is, with some exceptions for some people, don't force yourself, right? If you're not feeling it, then maybe today's not your painting day, right? I mean, the hobby's supposed to be fun. That includes all phases of the hobby, although painting sucks and I hate it. But don't force yourself. Now, sometimes people do better when they have,
pressure.
A competition coming up, so they've got pressure to finish. Some people just look at it as discipline. I'm just going to paint for an hour every day, and that's how I'm going to get through things. And those things are totally good too. But in general, you should only paint if it's if it becomes a chore. If your hobby becomes a chore,
bad. Burn.
Yeah, you're not going to enjoy it. That's I think where it gets real easy to get burned out. All right, Drake. So you have several guys come from Christmas. Four guys. Four heroic orcs.
Yep, and one squig.
So how do you? How have you been approaching your painting progress?
So what I did is, as soon as I could, I just hit it as hard as I could.
Mm-hmm.
And then, sort of what happens for me is, if it's new, I try to go for it. But then, I sort of just fizzle out. That happens to me. As I have it more and more, it just sort of.
That's true. Drake is. He gets distracted by shiny objects.
Ooh, shiny.
So whether that's model painting, or I cannot tell you the number of video games that Drake has started. It is so much lower than the number he has finished.
I have finished 1, 2.
So that is something.
4.
So if we're going to paint, how would you keep your motivation up? That if you were going to, like when you wanted to finish the Mock Crusher, right? That took more than one painting session. How did you do it?
I did it because it was the biggest model I've ever done. I was excited to do something new.
You're excited just because it was a big model?
Big is better.
Awesome. So for me, what I thought was interesting is when you had your four guys, you built and painted them all simultaneously.
Yes.
Why'd you do it that way?
Well, I did Zogrok because he's cool.
Right.
But with the Ardvoy big bosses, sort of in my brain, I decided I would do one battle ready and one parade ready. Or I would try to.
Uh-huh.
And so I painted them both at once so I could compare and see what worked and what didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the one I chose to be parade ready, I would take things that worked from the battle ready standard, or vice versa, and do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that way I can find the best stuff on sort of like a model that's going to be just for the tabletop.
I think that's pretty cool. But also, you didn't finish Zogrok before you started doing those guys.
That's true.
You sort of painted them all together.
Because I didn't want to... One of the main things I do not like doing is putting down a thing of paint and then not using all of it.
Oh, on your palette, you mean?
Yeah. I like put down a blob that big, and then I still have some left over. That's why I do them all at once.
Don't want to waste paint if you can help it. That's for sure. So that's interesting, because that's definitely not the way that I approach painting. So I like to do, so if I have a pile of shame, usually I try to go with
biggest
what I want to do next. So right now I'm working on the Slaves to Darkness army. So I've put aside the Black Talons. They'll come later, but I'm working on the Slaves to Darkness stuff. But then within that, I almost always start with the biggest unit
and work your way down.
And work my way down, and I'll batch paint it too. So I'll be like, all right now I'm doing
10 slaves.
All the armor. I'll go armor, 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 armor. I'll do that.
I do that sometimes.
Then I'll be like, okay, now I'm going to do all their boots.
Boots.
Boots. First of all, it makes it so you waste less paint.
Yep.
But also, I just like doing it that way because, so once again, I'm not an artist. I don't enjoy painting. But if I do it that way, it's like a little assembly line. I can see the progress getting made. And especially on a unit of 10, by the time I get to I finish the last guy's color, the first few are totally dry and ready to go again.
Yeah.
So I can just, all right, now I'm on to capes. Now I'm on to weapons or, whatever it is. Helms.
Skin.
So I definitely like to do it that way. And I like to start with the biggest units first because they're awful. Like, okay, so again, I'm not a fan of painting, but I want to get those biggest ones done because then I feel like I'm on the downhill slope. I feel like, oh, okay, now that the big units are done, I only have a couple of small units or a couple of heroes or whatever. It's all easy from here. Whereas when I go the other way,
you're going uphill.
Oh my gosh, it's awful. So we have this board game, War of the Ring.
We do.
Fantastic sort of board game, war game. Really, really, really good, especially if you like Lord of the Rings, although it's pretty good even if
you don't.
It's on its own. But it comes with a lot of little board game minis. And I decided to paint them up a long time ago. And I went in the reverse order. I went with the smallest people first.
The smallest armies or?
The smallest armies, yeah. And so by the time I got to the Mordor orcs, which are the largest, there's 1 million of those stupid orcs. Oh my gosh, I was dying painting the same orc over and over and over. And it was the worst because I'd already done everything else, right? So I felt like
all I have left is Mordor orcs.
I felt like I was at the top of it, like I was going up the hill. It was getting harder and harder as I kept doing it. So from that, now I always go the other way. I always start at the hardest and walk down
Start
the
at
hill.
the Mordor orcs and finish at them dwarves.
Yes. Because that way I feel like, okay, at least, maybe I have to paint some Therodons, or maybe I have to paint some Stormcast or whatever. It's like, well, at least I'm not painting 80 zombies. At least I'm not painting 30 Chaos Warriors or whatever it is. It's like, okay, we're going down slope. And that makes me happy because then I feel like the painting phase, which is the least favorite part, is progressing. I can see the progress being made because every time I finish something, my shelf is filling up, right? The box of units is filling up, and I like that. So even though those shiny things distract you,
ooh, shiny.
How do you stay motivated?
Another big way I can stay motivated is I pick a color, and then everything that I think should be that color is that color.
Oh, sure. But I mean, like, let's say you've painted your session for a day. It's time to go to bed. You clean up. How do you get motivated to start again?
One of the best things I do is read about Warhammer.
Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah, if you are immersed in the lore, at least I feel this way, but as you get stories, it's really easy to start thinking, oh, this thing is so cool. I'm so excited. It builds that excitement up.
Especially if the lore is about the model, it is.
Yes, and then you're like, oh, remember when this guy did this thing? I can't wait for them to be on the tabletop so we can play some more. I'm Drecky Flint. So yeah, for sure. I think reading about Warhammer stuff helps maintain that excitement level, push you through the painting. What else?
Another thing I like to do is read the War Scrolls and make a list with them.
Mm-hmm.
Because that way I can think, ooh, if I just get Zogrek done and if I get this stuff done, I can have 1 million Ard boys and then converge. Yeah,
so list building, I think, again, building that excitement. Another thing that I think helps a lot is to be doing something while you paint. For me, it's almost always listening to podcasts, or sometimes it's Warhammer podcasts, but sometimes I'm just catching up on other stuff I'm interested in. But if I have something going on that I can listen to, it makes it way easier, right? Because if I have to paint in silence, it's the worst. But if I would be listening to a podcast or whatever anyway, then that's good. And it's not hard at all for me to paint and listen. Like sometimes if I'm playing a game or something on my phone and I'm trying to listen to a podcast, I'll get sucked into the game and I'll check back in like 10 minutes later and go, oh, shoot, Oh, what was happening? I missed the last 10 minutes. But when it comes to painting, I can listen and paint pretty easily, and that's a big help. And I think you do that too.
I do that sometimes, but this batch of orcs I'm painting has actually been done in complete silence.
Oh, rough! You just
Tough it.
just toughed it out, huh?
Tough it out.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Now, what somebody has said, I read a thing online about how to stay motivated, and they said, well, what you should do is you should alternate between a big group that is, a lot, and then like a hero, and then a big group, and then like a small unit, and then
I
like
can
a
see
big
that.
group. What do you think about that?
I think that's fair because you could even stop in the middle of it like that. Like, I've painted so much black on these chaos guys. Oh, chaos hero. Let's paint him.
See, well, that's the question then. So you would stop in the middle,
I would stop in the middle and then
shiny, so the shiny's on the table.
and then I'd be like, okay, white. I finished. Do it.
Yeah, I would say that once you start a project, for me, once I start a project, I'm gonna finish that project.
Go down that rabbit hole.
No, well, that doesn't mean that I'm gonna sit there for hours and hours. I got other things to do most of the time, but it means that the next time I paint, I'm gonna work on that. Some people like to switch out one project or another. Some people will just paint anything that is in their sight that particular moment.
I can't even whistle because I'm smiling.
But I think that once you pick a project, you should just do it until you're happy with it.
Yeah.
Now, things might change if you're doing something totally display quality, right? Maybe you spent so many hours on this piece that you're like, I just need to do something else. And that's
Do
fine.
it.
That's fine, right? But I feel like if you're just painting up for tabletop quality, you want something battle ready to because you want to play the game, then I don't think there's anything. I think you just pick your unit, finish that bad boy off, move on. Very methodical, one step at a time.
I'm on touch-ups for most of my guys now too.
Oh, good.
So I'm getting close.
That's good.
The one that's least done is Thunk because I still have to do all his ground and his base.
So I think that is good. Any other tips you would help if somebody has a big pile of potential and they're trying to get through it?
It's shame that you know it is.
Then what other recommendations would you make?
I would. I don't know.
So
do you have anything else?
One other thing that people have said is sometimes if they're getting tired, like they just don't want to paint anymore, they'd rather play a video game or whatever. First, I always say, then fine, then do that.
Yeah.
Right. Just don't. Your hobby should never be a source of, shame or derision or frustration.
Even though it is the pile of shame.
Even though it is the pile of potential. Yeah.
No shame.
But one thing you can do, some people will say is, okay, well, if you get tired of painting, maybe you build a bunch of stuff, right? So you go through a building phase and you build a bunch of stuff. Or maybe you go through some priming and you get a bunch of stuff primed so that it's ready to paint.
Ooh, shiny.
Or yeah, maybe that problem happens. Or whatever, but you mix things up that way. Maybe you do some terrain, right? Which is a little bit different and sort of doesn't require the same high quality that
I haven't even painted terrain
do.
And I already hate it.
Well, that's a little judgmental.
I've painted orc terrain.
Yeah.
40K orc terrain.
Yeah, see?
So much stupid junk.
Well, that's what it is, junk piles. When you got a junk pile, that's what's going to be in there is junk.
Yes, but it's so hard to paint. That's the only thing I really dislike painting. Because it's 30 different colors, all in different spots.
It doesn't have to be 30 different colors. You just decided to make it 30 different colors. You do whatever colors you want.
And I regret it.
There you go.
Except now I'm down there.
But the when you're painting terrain, you can get away with a little bit of a more slapdash, a little bit more dry brushing, a little bit less wash. That stuff like that is you can do because when you're on the tabletop, nobody's going to be paying attention really to the terrain. They want to see the models. The models are what look cool, right? You can play the game with empty cups and stuff for your terrain. It'll be fine. So, but I generally do not like doing it that way, and the reason is I don't like storing models. I don't like storing models. I want them to be in the box, and then when I'm ready for them, I will build them, and then I will prime them, and then I will paint them. Right?
and then I will paint them.
All the other pile of potential stays in their boxes where they're easy to store. It's totally fine.
I thought I meant storing models like complete models. I'm like,
well, once they're complete, they're complete, right? So you have to put them in a box and where you can get them for a game.
Or you can
But
just
before
open it,
then,
so.
why? And the worst part is, so our storage solution, when they're done, I put a little magnet on the bottom,
Or multiple.
and then they go on a magnetized case, and that keeps them relatively safe.
You can see them all back there.
But if I don't want to put magnets on them before I start painting, because then as I'm moving the handles or I'm moving the different parts, they might snap into each other and it might bump my brush. Or I mean, it's not good. I don't want any other forces
Yes.
messing up my models. And then if they're not magnetized, then they're just open in a box somewhere, and I don't like that either. So in general, if I'm working on a unit, I might have at most one more unit built and primed. That's it.
Yep.
No more than that. And then
No more.
as you go through, so I think I just leave it all in the box, and that way it's like it's there, right? When I get to it, and I'll get there, it'll be there for me. I don't have to open it up and have the weapon options everywhere and all that sort of stuff. Just, I'll get to that when it's time comes, right?
Yep.
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So my recommendation is you just pick something, you power through it, and you decide, all right, if there's something that you really want to paint, like a hero or a big model or something like that really excites you, then maybe you eat your vegetables first.
Ooh, shiny.
Maybe you decide, all right, I make this deal with myself. And once I paint this unit of 20 demonettes or whatever.
Oh, spray paint purple.
All right. Once I'm done painting this unit, then I'll paint the cool model. And maybe that'll help keep you motivated, because it's like, I want to paint that cool model. I mean, I don't want to, but Drake might want to paint that cool model. So I will make sure I get through these other guys. But I think that giving yourself little goals, little successes that you can have along the way, I think is important. Final thoughts?
I think we got it all.
All right. Let us know in the comments below what you think, how you keep yourself painting along. This has been another episode of Battle Ready. Thanks so much for watching.